blood vessels. There are 3 types of blood vessels: the arteries, veins, and the capillaries. Each type of these blood vessels are specially adapted. They are specially adapted to carry out their functions. The structure of each of these types is different in order to carry out its function. But first, let's see what's the function of each of them. What's the function of an artery? It's going to transport blood away from the heart, to all body organs. لأن the arteries do not reach near the cells. مين اللي بيreach near the cells? Capillaries. Arteries reach the organs and then they start to branch along the network of capillaries. And because this blood is coming from the heart, is pumped out of the heart, it's going to be under high pressure. And that's why we feel pulsation in the artery. This blood will be pulsating. And when we want to measure a person's heartbeat, we start to find his pulse, the pulsations in the artery. This is equivalent to the heartbeat. So we start to measure his pulse. We count his pulse. We get his heartbeat. To find the pulse, we have to find an artery which is passing superficial near the skin. Usually, arteries become very deep. It's important not to injure the arteries. And the blood for the arteries is under very high pressure. If the artery is injured, we might not be able to stop the bleeding. عشان كده الارتريز كلها بتبقى very deep عشان تبقى protected. في areas
بس هو اللي على الايد ده
artery. لسه هقول في areas فيها arteries passing superficial, little bit superficial. زي اللي عند الريسس هنا وزي اللي عند النك هنا. في هنا arteries that are superficial, but usually very few areas where arteries are superficial and we can count the pulse and find that's the artery. What's the role of the veins? What do the veins do? It's going to transport blood from body organs to the heart. Transport blood from body organs to the heart, and the blood is going to be under low pressure, and we will see later on why the pressure in the artery is low. The vein is low. The blood capillaries, the role بتاع blood capillaries is to exchange substances between blood and body cells. That's the role of the blood capillaries. Okay? Now we should about how the structure of each is adapted for its function. If we look at the structure of the artery, we take a transverse section in the artery. And the artery is more or less circular. It has a regular shape. It's circular in shape. It has a very narrow lumen, that's a narrow lumen, and the wall is made of 3 regions. The inner lining of the wall is a little bit folded. دي من differences اللي ما بينها وما بين الفين. The inner lining of the artery is sometimes huge, and this is a thick wall. A thick wall بتاعت artery is made from a mixture of tissues, different tissues. من ضمنهم muscles, it has thick muscles, and elastic fibers. So what are we going to consider the artery to be? The artery هنعتبره ايه? Is it going to be an organ system, an organ, a tissue, or a cell? It's an organ. It's made of different tissues. من ضمن التيشوز دول المسلز and the elastic fibers. It's made of different tissues. Each tissue has its own particular function. It's considered as an organ. Okay, arteries and veins are organs. How can each of these structures help the artery to carry out its function best? Having a narrow lumen, this is going to maintain the blood pressure. It will keep the blood pressure high in the artery. Because if the lumen starts to widen, the blood pressure will drop. عشان كده it has a narrow lumen to keep the pressure high. It has thick walls, thick muscle walls. This is to withstand the high pressure passing through it. The high blood pressure passing through it. So that the walls wouldn't burst under this pressure. Elastic fibers, this is for recoil. It's going to allow recoil of the artery walls. And this recoil is going to smooth out the blood flow and maintain the blood flow. When the blood is pumped into the artery, it's not pumped continuously. It's not a continuous flow. It's intermittent. It's pumped in pulses. When the ventricles are contracting during ventricular systole, blood under high pressure enters the arteries. But when the ventricles are relaxing during the diastole, there is no blood entering the artery. هتبصوا تلاقوا البلد entering the artery شوية under high pressure, then it stops. Then it enters again, then it stops. This is what's meant by an intermittent flow of blood. It's not a continuous flow. And we all know that the blood moves through the arteries by the high pressure. That when the ventricles are contracting and there is high pressure, it's pushing the blood forward into the artery. What's going to happen when the ventricles relax and there is no pressure? Yeah, the blood will keep on moving. It stops. Will it be able to go back? Will it be able to go back to the ventricles? The blood will have already filled arteries. Will it go back to the ventricles? Why? عشان في semilunar valves that are closed. Okay, but blood will not be able to flow back into the ventricles. Like it will not be able to flow forwards. Come in, and there is nothing pushing it forward. It will wait for the second contraction so it can continue moving forward. Okay? Here comes the importance of the elastic fibers. The elastic fibers, they help the artery walls to stretch, then to recoil. عاملة زي elastic. But when the blood enters the artery under high pressure, the walls are going to stretch slightly. When the pressure drops during the ventricular diastole, these walls will recoil. But when they recoil, they're pushing the blood forward. But they are maintaining the blood flow in the artery. And that's why the lowest blood pressure in the artery is always higher than the lowest blood pressure in the ventricles. لو تفتكروا لما رسمنا الكيرف of pressure, the lowest pressure بتاع الأورطة was always higher than the lowest pressure in the left ventricle. That's because of the elastic fibers. If we draw the curve of pressure in different parts of our circulatory system, the highest change in pressure is always in the heart. Greatest change in pressure is always in the ventricles, the left ventricle. You find very low pressure during the diastole, and then the pressure increases very high during the systole. So this is pressure inside the heart. In the arteries, you will find the pressure fluctuating, increasing, decreasing. It increases during the systole, decreases during diastole. But you will always find the lowest pressure inside the artery higher than the lowest pressure in the ventricle. This is due to the elastic recoil of the artery walls. It gives the blood pressure to keep on moving. And مش بس هو الفالفز بيمنع الباك فلو، بس انا عايزه حاجه to push it further عشان keep on moving. خلي بالك انت في الفين الفالفز بتمنع الباك فلو بس مش هي اللي allow to move further. هنشوف دلوقتي في الفين ايه اللي allow to move further. Yes.
هو مش اصلا البلد ممكن البلد بريشر لوحده ليه لما بيوصل في حته بيقف فلازم
الهاي pressure inside the heart is not always there. The high pressure is during the systole. During diastole is very low pressure. طول ما في high pressure being pumped into the artery, the blood will flow. Like when the pressure is low, but the ventricular diastole, when there is no pressure in the ventricles, no pressure in the heart, and there is no blood under high pressure flowing into the artery, this blood will stop. Except for the presence of the elastic fibers. You know, they recoil the walls, so it pushes the blood further. Okay? الحاجة الثانية اللي elastic fibers بتعملها إنها it starts to smooth out the blood flow. It starts to smooth out this fluctuation. And it smooth out the fluctuation. It starts to decrease the difference between the highest and the lowest pressure. And this is the pressure inside the big arteries, the aorta and the main arteries of the organs. And this is in the arterioles. They are smaller arteries. As we move away from the heart, due to the elastic recoil, بيبدأ the fluctuation in blood pressure to become less. لأن elastic fibers عملت smoothing out the blood flow. It's maintaining it. تبدأ الpulsation دي تروح. Okay? وهنشوف ليه بعد كده البريشر بيقل later on.
بقى الستراكشر بيقول بحاجه صغيره
بالظبط كده. And when you see later on بقى ليه بيحصل general drop in pressure.
الستراكشر بيقول عشان مش محتاجه ان انا اطلع عليها.
لا structural recoil is to keep it moving, is to keep the blood flowing, to prevent the blood from stopping. بتقل I said wait a bit. أقول ليه pressure بيقل a little bit later. Okay? لغاية لما بتوصل للcapillaries، في الcapillaries is a steady drop of pressure. لما تلاقوا steady drop of pressure يبقى this is in the capillaries. The pressure keep on decreasing, it's increasing steadily. And then in the veins, it's a steady low pressure without any fluctuation, just low steady pressure. The vein. The transverse section in the vein shows an irregular structure. The walls are also made from three layers. لكن the layers كلها they are thinner than those in the artery. And they have thin walls. It has thin walls. Again, the walls have muscles and they have elastic fibers. Again, they don't have an important role في الفانكشن بتاعت الفين. عشان كده الوولز بتاعت الفين thin. It doesn't have a lot of muscles and elastic fibers زي في الارtery. Okay? And it has a much wider lumen. The lumen بتاع الفين in comparison to the thickness of the wall is much wider. لو أخذنا longitudinal section in a vein, you will also see the valves. So this is the walls. دي الوولز بتاعت الفين، ده longitudinal section عشان يبين الفالفز. Those are the valves. The valves اللي في الفين they are semilunar valves. They are semilunar valves. semilunar valves ده موجودة فين تاني؟ في الventricles, pulmonary semilunar والaortic semilunar. Okay? طيب. Why are the valves found in the veins?
To allow
the blood to flow in only one direction. But they open the blood to allow the blood to flow, then they close to prevent the blood flow, the backflow. But they allow blood flow in only one direction. Why human? This is to reduce resistance against the blood flow. We know that the blood is flowing in the vein under very low pressure. So we don't want to have a lot of resistance, so the blood can flow. نعم؟ عشان السناوي. بس في pressure عالي فهيقاوم الريزيستنس. يعني انت دايما لما بيبقى عندك الحاجه ضيقه، يعني مثلا لو انتوا الثلاث فصول طلعوا في الكوريدور ده وكلكم بتحاولوا تتحركوا في اتجاه واحد في نفس الوقت، مش هتكونوا عمالين بتزقوا في بعض عشان تعرفوا تتحركوا؟ لكن لو ماشيين في كوريدور مثلا بوسع الفصل ده مش هتتحركوا بسهوله اكتر؟ فدايما لما يبقى فيه وايدنس هتبص تلاقي الموفمنت بقت اسهل لان there is less resistance. اوكي؟ هو اصلا البريشر في الفين اقل. البلاد بريشر في الفين اقل. اوكي؟ فعلشان البلاد بريشر قليل انا I don't want anything to be resisting the blood flow عشان يقدر يتحرك. ايه؟ طبعا. طيب. How does the blood flow in the vein? The blood to flow in the vein, it flows by the contraction of the skeletal muscles. The veins بتبقى surrounded by our skeletal muscles. You know what the skeletal muscles are? The muscles اللي ماسكة bones that allow movement. So when our muscles contract, they start to squeeze the blood inside the veins. عشان كده الwalls بتاعت الveins thin. The veins have thin walls so that when the skeletal muscles contract, they can squeeze the blood. The blood starts to move and the valves close. Okay? حتى breathing movements, حتى breathing muscles اللي موجودة اللي ماسكة intercostal muscles في الثوركس لما بتعمل contraction هي it helps برضه في الموفمنت بتاعت البلد في الفينز هناك. اوكي؟
بس يعني بقى عشان كده
وهو لو الفور مش صغيرة thin walls يعني لو الوولز دي تخينة لو السكيلتال ماسلز بتعمل contraction مش هتوصل الكونتراكشن للبلد اللي جوه مش هتعرف تعمل له سكويزنج لأن الوول تخينة قوي. لكن لما الوول هتبقى thin when the muscles contract they will be able to squeeze this blood. هيعملوا squeezing كده للفين فالpressure ده هيوصل للبلد. It starts to push it. Okay, and that's blood flows. Now they are closer to the surface than the artery to the surface than the arteries and they are more easier to find.